did. And make sure that we live on the other end. Say we live here. All right, it says we live. We'll be right back.
Magnetic kick, and let's get with this young warrior, this young scholar, this young martial artist, this young thinker, this warrior, strategist, and what? That you know, yo, Gaddafi with the smash hit. I know, you know, we know. Let's go.
Look, I know, you know, living your dream takes time. Stay consistent, and then you'll be fine. Yeah, work hard until you comfortable. What they thinking, it isn't up to you. Nah, life about taking chances. You standing out when you standing. Yeah, all hands and no hands out. We gon' see what the people care about. Look, yeah. Confidence equals power. You dig? Look, I know we need to get together and become one. You know that life we live in, man, it only come once. We know that life we live in, and we know it's up. I know we got plenty of coins to run up. You know we do the most, it really ain't done much. We know that government corrupt. I know collectively we need to get our funds up. You know it's plenty ways to come up. We know we gotta keep that shit amongst us. I know they hate us cause we done created everything. You know we coming from a far greater legacy. We know those who hate us because of our melanin. And if you don't, make it president. But honestly, the question is, who gon' stand with us? If you look like me, you better have your hand in this. See, I'm talking all Africans and all Afro-Cans. Just remember, we ain't even asked for this. But I'm glad you did. Now let me show you what a savage is. Killer mentality, show your ass what an assassin is. A bunch of stolen goods, you talking lavish shit. Bragging to get a crack and kill with all them blasphemous acts you did to keep your family rich. Man, you stole from my wife and kids. Man, it's not a curse to be smart, it's a curse being aware. It's not a curse to be smart, it's a curse being aware. It's not a curse to be smart, it's a curse being aware. Kill the boa, kill the farmer. I know, you know, they got your days filled with lies, and you sitting back acting like you surprised. I know, you know, we still got so much to do. You really thought them people fucked with you. Look, steadily playing their game, man, they got your ass looking like a lame. You gon' stand for something or fall for anything. You stand for something or fall for anything. I know, you know, we know, I know, you know, I know, you know, we know, I know, you know, I know, you know, we know, I know, you know, yeah, I know, you know, we know, I know, you know. Tell them crackers don't play with me. 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 I ain't playing with you niggas either. I ain't playing with you niggas either. But tell them crackers don't play with me. 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 I ain't playing with you niggas either. I ain't playing with you niggas either. But tell them crackers don't play with me. Tell them crackers don't play with me. Yeah. If you know, then you know. You already know. Young Gaddafi, revolutionary but gangster. It's that WSK music, you feel me? AKA that Underground Railroad music. Yeah. You know we do this shit for the ancestors, you know. The voice of the ancestors. A different sound, but you can still play it in the background.
DJ Get into the motivational vocalics.
All right. Welcome back to the Warrior Scholar Show. I am your host, Kofi Piesie. I'm an author, a writer, a publisher, music producer, content creator, amongst other things. We have a special guest in the building today, and I'll let our guest introduce himself to those who may not know who he is.
What's happening, y'all? My name is Cool Colas. I am also known as the Pro-Black Blerd King. I'm an author, writer, activist, speaker, overall Black creative, and I'm somebody who's here to spread a lot of great knowledge about the Black community and talk about how we can help it be more empowered in the segment of entertainment.
No doubt. So before we get started, I always have to go through my list spiel. So we're going to give y'all what the definition of a warrior is, what a definition of a scholar is, and when combining those two words, from my perspective, what a warrior scholar is. A warrior is a soldier, combative, one who wages war, a person who engaged in experience in warfare, broadly a person engaged in some struggle or conflict. Scholar, a person who attends a school or study under a teacher, pupil, a person who has done advanced studies in a special field. Excuse me. A learned person, a holder of scholarship. Excuse me. A person who studies a subject of great detail, especially at a university. So when combining the word warrior and scholar, we get warrior scholar. So from my perspective, what a warrior scholar is someone who is well studied and waging war against mistruths, pseudoisms, and willing to stand on the battlefield against institutions and platforms that promote that. A warrior scholar is someone who is on a mission for the truth, for accurate and sound information. A warrior scholar is one who is disciplined, good characters, morals, and willing to fight back against those who use misinformation dangerously. So that is what a warrior scholar is from my perspective. And this brother that we have on the panel is definitely a warrior scholar, right? So this being the Warrior Scholar Show, man, every person that comes on Cool Carlos, this is a question that I give everybody, and that is, who are some of your warrior scholars? Who are some of the people who influenced Cool Carlos along the way on his journey?
Most definitely. I'll give you a handful of people, both in the past and in the present as well, too. So
Okay.
Malcolm X is definitely one of the people. You can see the poster in the
Yes,
back
sir.
right here. But yeah, that's my guy. So Malcolm X and his ideals really influenced me. And so when we talk about more of kind of like that middle ground, Francis Cress Welsing, and then Dr. Well, I don't know if he's a doctor, but Neely Fuller Jr. He's another person who's influenced a lot of the work that I do. And then Dr. Claude Anderson.
Okay. Most definitely. You can't go wrong with none of them, man. You can't. And it's crazy. You are the 50 some guest. I think you may be like 53 or something like that. And Malcolm X is always brung up. Francis Quest Wilson is also another one. Name has been thrown out numerous times on this podcast. Right here, man. And I can kind of see with the individuals that you name, I can kind of see how they kind of influence, influence you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. My bad.
Yeah. No. You're good. I was just basically saying it's kind of a mix of those people, because I kind of look at individuals who are able to kind of break down the psychology of what we're doing, right? And I see myself as somebody who can translate that into words. So even if you look at a lot of my work, like my most recent book, the Pro-Black Blerd Series, exposing anti-Black media tropes the blurred way, that's where I take all these different tropes and I break them down when I look at anti-Blackness, and I help people to kind of understand what they're looking at. They gave me
hold on. We gonna talk about that.
I know. I'm getting a little head. I know.
Yeah, we definitely we go get in both of the publications, man.
Yeah.
But your name, man, Cool Carlos.
Yeah.
It's distinctive. Could you share the inspiration behind it and what message or identity it represents for your brand and your mission?
Okay, most definitely. So Cool Colas was a name that I came up with kind of randomly, but when I was in high school, I had this Spanish class, and this Spanish teacher that I had, she wanted us to come up with these Spanish nicknames, and I didn't really identify with the culture too much, so I was like, let me just come up with something that kind of sounds close. So what I did was I took my real name, which is Nicholas, and then I actually shortened it into Colas. So I took the N, the I, and the H out, and then I got Colas from that. So I put cool in front of it because cool for me symbolized somebody who is unique, somebody who is authentic, and somebody who's self-aware. So I put that in front of it because it was kind of catchy. And then what I found out is that it all ended up kind of coming together. First of all, like if you look at Africa, there's like this fruit called the cola nut fruit. It's a red fruit.
Most definitely.
Yep. It's a red fruit. That's also like my African zodiac. So I was like, okay, that's cool too. and then like it's a red, like red's my actual my favorite color. And so like those things all kind of came together, and I'm like, I can kind of run with this ideal because it's like this name kind of called out to me. So I used it from there.
Okay. Okay, I never knew that, man. I mean, because there's so many people come on and they have these unique names, right? So I always interested on how they came up with their names, what is the meaning of the symbolatry behind, the name. So, I always ask, and I always wonder that too. I met you through Sean, and I've been, been knowing you. I know maybe at least 2 years I've been knowing of you, and we done chopped it up.
Yep.
I just never knew where the name come from or even what it means. So I appreciate, man, you sharing that with me. That was a personal question for me.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
mm-hmm. um, with uh, with nearly a decade in civil rights work, how would you describe the evolution of Black advocacy in media and activism over the past 10 years? What areas still needs the most urgent attention from your perspective?
I think that, and this is the reason why being a scholar warrior is really important. I think that what's important for us is for us to have some understanding of discernment and being able to understand how we can create unity and what that looks like. And I'm finding that that's actually the biggest problem is that we have to find a way to define what it means to be on code, and then we have to be able to follow that. And what we need to understand before we can even go forward, before we can do anything that's actually empowering, is we have to understand white supremacy itself and what things that we need to do to be able to combat against it. Because what I find a lot of times with people is they like to talk about, oh, I don't like to talk about racism, what's happening here, what's happening there, anti-blackness, because I'm looking for solutions. And so I have a term for these individuals, and I call these people solution sambos. And I call them solution sambos because a lot of times they're like trying to act like they really care about solutions when they really just don't want to hear somebody whine. But we need to take those types of terms and put them out of our vocabulary. We are in a system of white supremacy. So what that means is that we need to see ourselves as reporters who are reporting on the climate of what is happening around us. So once we understand what's happening in our space and with our enemies, then we can finally discern and figure out what we need to do. So what I'm finding is that we need to define what Black unity is. We need to, and part of that is discernment. And the other part of it too is just getting on code with like-minded people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, those are, I'll be honest. I don't, being reporting certain things like I'm a writer, so a lot of times I write from I write for the Black experience. So I report on African culture, tradition. I report on things that has happened to Blacks right here in America, on the Caribbean, South America, right? So I report on those types of things. But and I don't know, you said people look at it as people complaining about when we're reporting on these type of things. You mentioned white supremacy, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't understand why people will have a problem with us reporting, you know what I'm saying, and making people aware of certain plights and situations that are happening here and happening, is happening globally when it comes to Black people. I definitely have a problem with people who are complainers. I like people who come up. I'm a solution based a person,
Yeah.
and I like solutions, but I like people reporting on certain things so I can be aware on certain things, so I can, if I can, create a solution. You know what I'm saying, or add on to someone who's trying to create a solution. I hate a complainer, bro. I really hate a complainer, and a lot of us have become professional complainers. We always complaining about the situations that we are in, but we have no solutions to fix the problems. All we want to do is complain over and over and over about why we're suffering socially, politically, economically and educational wise, you know what I'm saying? So we like that. We become professional at that, but we hadn't come professional when it comes to solutions. You know what I'm saying? Okay, we know where we're suffering at. We're suffering in all these different areas we mentioned. How can we overcome that? What do we need to put in place? You mentioned unity, right? That's the most in you know, one of the most critical and crucial elements is unity. You know what I'm saying? So looking at it, so what do you think it'll take for us to unify and be on code, as you would say? What you think would that would take? What it would look like?
I think I somewhat answered it, but to elaborate, what I would say is that when it comes to, you know, unification, we have to get with like-minded individuals, and we have to teach individuals who want to be taught. So my theory, or my belief, true belief, is that we shouldn't, you know, try to change the mind of somebody who's already made up their mind that they are going to sambo and they are going to do what they're going to do. We need to be able to teach children, first of all, and people who just don't really know the game, aren't really hip to things, and are willing to get the game. That's my whole philosophy. We don't try to change minds and hearts. We just simply try to connect with people who are like-minded. When we get with those individuals, we build with them, we network with them, and we find ways that we can put each other on in a way where we can do constructive things. So and I also wanted to kind of go back to your statement that you had just made about, you know, what you were talking about. See, me and you have been connected for 2 years, and we've, you know, talked a bunch of times, but there's not been one time that I've ever seen you ever come on and do some solution samboing. I haven't seen you come onto my platform and say, all you do is complain. All you do is talk about this. All you do is talk about that. There's a difference between being a solutions oriented person, as you kind of mentioned, and being a solution sambo. A solution sambo just wants attention. So they'll try to talk about us describing when events go on and try to say that's complaining when it's not. And see, earlier you asked me a question and you said, who were some of the people that have influenced the things that I do? Well, one of the things I was going to get into this a little bit earlier, but I think I was going off the grid a little bit. But Neely Fuller Jr., he actually talked about this in his United Compensatory book, where he stated that we are not complainers whenever we talk about what's happening in a system of white supremacy. We are reporters reporting on the climate that we exist in. So that's why I said that there's a difference between complaining, meaning like I'm never going to get my shit together or whatever the case may be, and reporting on something that is actually going on with you. We need to provide the entire picture before we can figure out how we can move. Because if we're just like solutions, what in the hell is you trying to find a solution for? Like, you don't even know what the problem you're solving is.
Right. Definitely. Most definitely. And you know, you and we'll get off of this. You mentioned like-minded people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're not one of those individuals, but you know, when we say like-minded people, sometimes like, and I had to figure this out. I had to figure this out on my own. I come from a climate, I come from a community. When we mention like-minded people, those people have to have the same morals, principles, values, and perspective on the world as I have on. And what I mean by that is, if a person that looks like me, if he was a Christian, if he was a Muslim, if he was a Moor, if he was a 5%er from the nation of God, God's earth, if he was FBA, whatever labels we put on each other, a lot of times, you know, we want food, even though we're suffering. Because what I'm saying is, if I get pulled over by the police and I say I'm a Pan-Africanist and I'm a black nationalist and I'm pro-black, right? And I get pulled over, and then someone get pulled over and they say they are Shiite Muslim, they're gonna still get treated the same way. They still gonna be treated unfairly. It's not gonna be a difference. I'm not gonna be treated better because I say I'm a Pan-Africanist, I'm pro-black, I'm a black nationalist, versus another black man or black woman who says that they are a Shiite Muslim, or someone who is an Orthodox Muslim, or a Christian, or a Moor, or a Muslim. So we are suffering. We have the same plights, right? Regardless of what we look at ourselves are, they only look at us as one way. but we'll pretend to we'll begin to not unify with these other people because they have a different label on us. And and I'm just throwing it out there because the community that I come from, they breeded it, and they inbreeded it in me. So I missed out on opportunities or helping other people or even helping myself grow because I always been taught when we say like-minded, their worldview and perspective should be coincide, their beliefs should be in line with mine. But when I study history and just looking at Marcus Garvey is one of my heroes. I'm a Garveyite. So Marcus Garvey, he had more, Marcus Garvey was a Christian, but he had Muslims, he had Moors, he had so many different people who was a part of the movement because they understand about unification. We can only move forward if we together. You know what I'm saying? What you believe you can and practice, you can practice that in the confinements of your own home. But when we out here in the streets and we're galvanizing and we're trying to push, our agenda forward and we're trying to accomplish things, then hey, this is what we got in common. This is what we got in common. This is what we need to unify on. So I just wanted to throw that out there when you said like-minded people, because a lot of people think when you say like-minded that everything has to be definitely in line with what you believe. And that's a lot of times things that separate us is what we believe in, right? Or what we don't believe in,
Yeah, what I was going to say about that is when it comes to being like-minded, it wasn't really, or at least the way I was expressing it, wasn't all-encompassing per se. So you're absolutely right when you say that. It's more so this idea that there's a nexus between the way a lot of us think. And so what I find is that with all of us who have this pro-Black mindset, we may have different values or different things that we see, different ways we see the world, but there has to be something that's in common that would make us like-minded. And what I see from us is the fact that we put Black people first. That's why for a lot of us who are like pro-Black in the grassroots, we say be one. And B1 is symbolizes Black first because we're putting Black first in every regard, in every area of activity, and we're making it a priority to empower ourselves. So that's kind of the thing that I see and what I mean also when I say like-minded.
Yeah. When you say B1, we same ideology as race first. We always say race first and putting our race first, right? A lot of times when you mention that, what type of feedback do you get from that when you say Black first or you say race first? What type of feedback do you get from that? Because because a lot of our own people, we don't understand that terminology when we say that. And we'll go into you being racist. You know what I'm saying? You're a part of a hate group, etc. When you mention those things. But any other race in particular, and we know race is a construct, but it's even though it's a racial construct, it's still a real thing, right? But when you look at the Arab, you look at the Chinese here, you look at the Pakistani and the Korean, you look at the white man, they utilize race first. They utilize that, you know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with that. They take care of home first and then everybody else second. When it comes to us, we take care, we don't take care of home first. We take care of everybody else. You know what I'm saying? We believe in taking care of everybody else. So do you get that same type of feedback when you push Black first or race first? You know what I'm saying? Black empowerment. Do you get that pushback where people saying that you're talking to them, you're that's hate speech or you're being racist,
Yeah, so I don't get it often, but the one thing that I will say is that anybody who does, there's only 4 types of people who have an issue with me saying B1. It's either somebody who's just totally ignorant, it's somebody who just doesn't they're not actualizing that what I said is important in the grand scheme of putting race first. It's somebody who's samboing. That's the second type of person. An actual like suspected or speculated white supremacist, that whatever you want to call it, and then tethers. Those are the only people who actually get upset about those terms. Everybody else who is all about Black empowerment understands the need for that. So I don't really pay them people no mind. I'm going to be honest with you. But what I will say is this. I will say that when it comes to the whole racist thing, first of all, we can't be racist, number one, because we have no power dynamic that we control in order to do that. So that's really just a deflection because someone's upset because we're talking about putting ourselves first when we never do. And then the second thing that I would also say to that type of pushback, if I were to get it, is okay, so that means that we're going to be in a system where we're continuing to be subjugated, and then you're continuing to lie about why we're in the position that we're in. So what's going to happen a lot of times with that is the Black community, if we're talking about that scope, a lot of us are going to be a permanent economic underclass. And this is something that Dr. Claude Anderson has talked about. And what that means is that everybody's going to look and say, well, we lazy. We is our own worst enemies. You know, we going to start saying all types of goofy stuff like that. Like, so
I done heard it all. I'm laughing because I done heard it all. That's definitely true what you're saying. That's definitely true what you're saying.
So that's what I'm noticing with it. I don't get a lot of pushback on B1 per se too much outside of maybe nitpicking, and then a lot of like the haters that I kind of described, and somebody was just totally ignorant of how white supremacy operates.
Definitely. Man, what inspired you to write the Pro-Black Blerd series, and why was it important to represent it from the perspective of self-identity blurred? And also with that, for the listening audience that may not know what a blerd is, because I'll be honest with you, I never knew what a blerd was until I actually seen you and Sean have a discussion on Instagram, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting, an interesting word, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I just found out what in the word been around a long time, and you know, I found out about it 2 years ago, you know what I'm saying? So can you explain what a blerd is? And then it's a twofold question, and then after you explain what a blerd is, you know, can you tell us what inspired you to write the Pro-Black series? And this is the book right here for people that
yes, indeed.
All right.
Yes, indeed. So the first question, which is what is a blerd? A blerd is Black nerd, but it's not just as simple as that. It's a whole definition to understanding that type of thing. It's a cultural experience. See, the classic nerddom that we know, it's kind of corny, it's kind of cheesy, and ultimately you associate that with white nerds. But then when you think about being a Black nerd, it's a whole experience. It's somebody who's in tune with these whimsical endeavors, whether it be comics, whether it be video games, whether it be anime, or a combination of these things or more, while also having an awareness of Black culture and being in tune with their Black culture as well, too. So it takes those two concepts and combines them into one and creates a different experience. Now, to answer the question about the book and what inspired me. So the reason why I wrote this book was because I wanted to create something that was an extension of what I talk about on social media. So the whole idea was for me to not just create a make down of a lot of the tropes and agendas that I've seen, but also to talk about patterns that I've seen that haven't really been identified or categorized, putting them in there, and then teaching people how they can actually identify these things when they watch TV as well, too. So in other words, I'm looking at the nuance of entertainment and how anti-Blackness operates within entertainment, because these are one of the areas of activity that, going back to Neely Fuller Jr., that he's talked about, that white supremacy dominates. So I'm focusing on that type of thing. Now, the one thing that I wanted to mention about this book is I tried to show in this book how a lot of the things that we watch on TV relate to, you know, real world experiences. So I talk about my own experiences with racism and what it took for me to get to this point where I can explain this to people. And then at some point, I provide solutions on what we can do going forward and how other people who actually read this book can help me to create a better media for Black people, representation based and also authenticity based.
Most definitely, man. I be honest, I hadn't read the whole book, but I read some chapters in there when I first bought the book, you know what I'm saying? Because I know that's what we want. We want people to, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna finish the book, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna finish the book pretty soon here, man. Man, that's what we want. We want people to support, but we also doing the support, we want people to be able to you know, read it, you know what I'm saying, and get some feedback and some critique. That's the only way we able to get better as writer is through whether you like it or you didn't like it, you know what I'm saying. I always say I accept all feedback, whether it's good or bad. You know what I'm saying? We need that. That's the only way it's able to, to make us better, man. And that's kind of going into um your book tackles 7 categories of anti-black media tropes. Which tropes do you think are the most damaging today, and why?
Which ones do I think are the most damaging? Oof,
Yes.
man, I put a lot of them on the same playing field. To be honest, the one thing to be real, they all are bad.
Yeah.
What I would say is that I can tell you the ones that I think are most frequently happening, and
Mhm.
as a result, cause the most issues. One of the ones that I see quite frequently is what I would call the black carbon copy trope, but I want to talk specifically about a subtrope I see in it. I want to talk about race swapping. So that's one subheading of that. So it's like a subtrope. One of the reasons why I'm going to bring this one up specifically is because this is a show of inauthentic representation, but it's given you the facade that it's not like that. And so what that shows you is that we're moving into a space where the white supremacist wants to try to create covert white supremacy, not overt. So it's very hard to detect. So what I tend to see whenever people are portraying these race swap images is what I would call the playing both sides narrative. And this is something that shows up quite frequently, but everybody almost every single time it shows up misses it. So let me explain what I mean by that. Whenever a race swap is made, so for example, you have a character that's typically white, and then they change them to be black, but they change nothing but the phenotype. They keep everything else the same. These types of characters will then incite for these racist white nerds to start whining about how they don't want to see a black whatever character is out there. So automatically, all of the people who are fans of this are going to start whining back at the people who are blatantly racist when they don't understand that there's a playing both sides agenda. So yes, you got these racist mayo eating nerds who are just, whining about like the fact that there's a black character. But what you're not seeing is that there's this company that's trying to create inauthentic representation, exploit the image, and allow that black person to be exposed to all of this racism while also profiting off of the image that they created.
Mhm.
So a lot of times this shows you how white supremacy operates, where they try to play the supporter and the oppressor at the same time. So this is a very complex thing, and people miss it every time because they're so focused on the blatant thing that they see. They're not looking at the covert operations. It's almost like looking at, the KKK walking down the street and talking about how they hate black people versus looking at somebody who is the only black person at a job and they were institutionally fired. See the difference between the two? One of them doesn't on its face look racist. It just looks like a thing that happened covertly. The other thing is extremely overt in your face.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Never looked at it like that. I like that, man. I never looked at it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, and this is not this something just popped up in my mind. It's the skill set, man. How one develop a skill set. Like I've looked at a lot of your videos on Instagram in
Yeah.
the past 2 years, and even when you transition into YouTube, man. And congratulations, I see the subscribers are steady going up on your
Appreciate that.
YouTube channel,
Cool.
man, and you being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
How one develops, because I there's quite a few people um that I know. I ain't gonna say I ain't gonna say quite a few people. There are a handful of people
Mm-hmm.
that are in the same lane as you are. How one develops a skill set to break
Mm-hmm.
down, because that is a phenomenal skill set to have, where you can sit down and
Yeah.
look at a video and
Mm-hmm.
then be able to come back and do some commentation and break everything down in pieces, things that the
Mm-hmm.
normal eye wouldn't, wouldn't see.
Yeah.
What how one develops that skill set, or how you develop that skill set.
Oh yeah, most definitely. That's a great question. It's great because there's like multiple answers to it, right? So I do a lot of studying, but I listen to a lot of the people who have done a good job of masterfully breaking down, other entities that I've seen, especially when we have instances of racism and white supremacy taking place. And that's why I go back to people like Francis Cress Welsing, who've identified the psychology of white supremacy, and Neely Fuller Jr., who has given us a base of where to start at when we're looking at white supremacy and all the areas that it exists in. But what I really do is I look at kind of the common trends and tropes that take place. And then I start studying, kind of what I see, and then patterns of how it shows up in other places as well, too. So what it helped me to do is start seeing that a lot of these white supremacists, when they're creating these different TV shows and movies, they're not damn creative at all. They're putting the same stuff over and over and over again in their lore in a different way. So what I started doing was noticing patterns and how they show up, and then looking at the why, and then also seeing other, as you've described here, warrior scholars who've actually like pointed some of these things out. I also noticed too that a lot of the things that they do are allegorical. So if you understand history, and that's why understanding history and understanding how white supremacy and education on that actually is important, because what you'll notice is that a lot of stuff is actually being stolen from us and then repackaged and then put into what we're seeing. So I look at patterns, and then and that's why I said discernment is key in everything you do. You have to be able to discern what you're watching. You have to put labels on things. You have to understand things, because that's what's going to help you to make better decisions. And ultimately it's going to help you to, I talked about the whole like-minded thing, know kind of what your enemy is doing and how they're actually operating. So it was a combination of things, is the short answer to, much longer process that is.
Yeah, man. Cause and I always wanted to do it, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'll watch a movie with my wife. My wife is a movie head, and sometimes I be trying to identify and break it down. I just can't deliver it in a way where she can understand it. You know what I'm saying? I don't care how much reading, because I'm an avid reader. I love to read. I love to read. I love to read.
Yeah.
And I just can't. That's why I'm saying you have to have this is a skill set. Everybody can't do it.
Yeah.
Everybody can't, everybody can't do it, man. So
Yeah.
you do a wonderful and excellent job, like when you breaking things down. I don't know if you did, have you did the centers yet? Have you did the
I
centers
did,
yet?
man. I
Where you
did.
doing?
I did. Matter of fact, I did it 2 videos ago.
I'm gonna have to, is it on Instagram or is it on your YouTube channel?
It's on YouTube, but I will say that I started breaking things down on Instagram, where I've been taking pieces of it and put it on there. So yeah.
Okay.
Actually, matter of fact, I did a live last night where I talked about the haters, like the different types of haters who hated the Sinners movie. So I did 2 videos on it.
Okay, and because I know you went live maybe about 2 days ago or 3 days ago. Prior to that, I think you did, and because I tried to catch it. I tried to catch it, man. Because anytime I ain't gonna say everything that comes out, you know what I'm saying, but something that sparks my interest, I always try to see when because I know you're gonna break it down. When he gonna come and break it down, because there may be something that I missed in the movie. You know what I'm saying? So you will come through, and I'm gonna definitely check that out tonight, man. Because I wanted today to check out the one you did 2 or 3 days ago. I wanted to check it out because I wanted to, and we can go ahead and talk about it now, because my questions, it don't always, I just go, go with the flow of how the interview is. So I might start at the top and start from the middle, then end up at the bottom, then back up at the top. So
go with it.
you was and I wanted to I definitely wanted to check that out. I know that you into the comics and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So you a comic creator, right? So, and I know you mentioned about a new comic, and that was the reason why I wanted to, to check that video out, so I can come back, because I wanted to see exactly, what you was talking about your comic. So you got a new comic coming out, So can you walk us through that process, man, of because I know that is different. That is different than writing, you know what I'm saying, writing and formatting a book, and format, layout, you know what I'm saying, and writing it. It's different when you're talking about a full-on comic book. So can you talk about your new comic book and kind of walk people through the process? Because I'm interested in the process and the steps to creating, you know what I'm saying, a comic book, you know what I'm saying, and creating a you know a storyline behind it. So can you talk to us about that?
Oh, most definitely. So there's going to be a lot of nuances here, but I try to break it down as best as I can.
Mhm.
But so with my comic book, what a lot of people don't know about me is I'm more of a storyteller than I am an artist. If I had to rate myself, I'd probably say I'm like a B level artist, but I know there's somebody who could probably bring it better to life than me. However, I actually wrote like a lot of comic book stories and narratives, and I have two specific comic brands that I plan to do at a certain point, and I'm going to be launching the first comic book for one of those brands. And so I have this comic book series that I'm creating, and it's actually called the Flamer comic book. And the Flamer series comic book series is about this humanoid elemental character, and he's like a fire type of character. And so the world that they exist in is kind of similar to our human world, where like a race would be like fire or water or electricity or that type of thing. So these characters are basically crime fighters who try to protect and save their world from demons and other and their race is called abilitons, and other abilitons who try to take it over and do bad things. So when people hear this and they're like, okay, you're a pro-black creator, like what does that have to do with blackness? And I said it has everything to do with race, because ultimately what I'm doing is using a lot of the things that I'm talking about in this comic book to explain allegories on race. So a lot of these races that you see where I talk about fire, water, electricity, that type of thing, you're going to see a lot of things related to things we've seen in our own culture and in other cultures show up in this comic book without it being totally in your face. So the whole idea is to make a almost like a it's somewhat going to be like DBZ, but with a more elemental spin on it. And even if you look at something like a Dragon Ball Z, look at how like their anime goes. Like there's a lot of allegories in there. If you look at characters like Piccolo, he's wearing like the Moorish outfit. You know, the Saiyans are supposed to be representatives of foundational Black Americans. Frieza's supposed to be a white supremacist. So, I mean, we could keep going. But my point here is that I'm creating my own version of the way that I'm going to have this kind of whimsical world of fighting characters that have racial elements to them at the same point. So that's the comic book that I'm going to be putting out.
Okay, the process. What the process look like, man, when creating a comic book?
Yeah, I was answering the first question. Second question about the comic book process is so the things that I've been doing are creating the manuscript that goes by scenes and understanding kind of what's happening in each one for the first comic book. So right now I'm doing that, but then the plan is to get somebody who's going to be a color artist, somebody who can actually draw the actual like comic book itself and put them onto separate pages as well too. So a lot of the funding that I've been raising has been to find, again, a color artist, somebody who's actually drawing it, and then somebody who's actually putting the book together. So and on top of like trying to get copies as well too, so that I can distribute them out. Now obviously there's still things I'm trying to figure out with this whole process, but the idea is to put that out there at some point. I'm looking at 2026 right now, but I don't have an official date of when that's going to, you know, all be like done and put together. But those are like that's the simple version of the things that I'm going to be looking for, since I'm not the actual artist putting it together.
And with a project like this, the price is totally different from just writing a book, you know. And I'm just throwing that out there just for what you're saying, you know, because you just named what the things that you have to get an artist to actually draw it, and then someone that actually put it all together for you. You know what I'm saying? And when dealing with that, you know, it's pricey because now you're dealing with pictures, you're dealing with a lot of images, you're dealing with color, right? So any publisher, we know, if you know, if you're publishing, you ever published a book before, you know that, you know, the color is a little bit more expensive. And but you're doing a comic book that's going to have images on each page. The color is going to be you, and with those, you can't have a premium color. You got to have the, you know, whatever platform that's going to do it. You got to have the most enhanced color when you're doing a comic book. So the
Mhm.
money, you know, so there's more money to be spent than just writing a regular book. That's why I wanted you to kind
Yeah.
of talk about the process. Now, if you, I'll put you, I hadn't talked to him in a while. I hadn't
Yeah.
talked to one of my brothers in a while, but he put out a comic book.
Uh-huh.
He's put out a comic book about 2 or 3 years ago. Now he was supposed no, it's been about 2 years. No, it's been 3 years, and I know he's heavy into the comics. So he wrote a
Mhm.
comic, and he had someone to help alongside with himself to put out the comic. A pretty neat, dope comic, you know what I'm saying?
Mm. Mhm.
A black comic. Um,
Cool.
it looks, I'm talking about, looks phenomenal. I knew exactly where it was. I could kind of show you exactly what it looked like. But
Mhm.
I definitely can plug you with him, man, if you want to be plugged with him, and you can see exactly what avenue he took, you know what I'm saying, for as on the money side, the expensive side, because he has a product already out there. He has uh you know been shopping that product around or whatever, man. But I know
Yeah.
it's a lot that goes into um putting out a comic book, man, and you definitely got to be a creator when you trying to create a world, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying, for this. And I've tried, and I'm very creative, and I
Yeah.
did it once, and I'm trying to recreate something else. I created a coloring book called Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland,
Yeah.
and it's based on a true story, the Gullah Geechee people, because Kalawa is a
Yeah.
Gullah Geechee name, and her father is based off a story where in 1996, the people that was in Georgia and Florida, the people who called themselves the Gullah Geechee people, they found out that their culture, the things that they do, they live in their everyday life. There are people that's in Sierra Leone and Liberia that does the exact same things that they
Mhm.
do. So they
Mhm.
took a pilgrimage out there. The president in Sierra Leone, and they all got together, and they was able to pilgrimage back to Sierra Leone to see their people, you know what I'm saying, and see the same thing that the culture experiences out there in Sierra Leone is what they was the same cultural experiences over here. And that was, they was utilizing, they was farmers. They cultivated rice. So they was kidnapped for a specific reason and took to these sea islands. And
Mhm.
so I created a story, but it was a children book. And but the lessons in was she had went back there with her father, because her father went there when he was a young boy with this real life story. But then when he got grown, he promised to take, if he had children, back to Sierra Leone, which he took back to Sierra Leone. But he also took her to other African countries. But he took her to uh, educate her in music and music instruments, why we use drums, how they create drums, where the original ideal for the harp come from, you know, why music is entangled in everything, you know, in their cultural
Right.
experiences and etc. So
Mhm.
I'm writing now. Kalawa is grown, so now I'm creating another story off of that, but it's not a children's story. It's Kalawa is actually grown now, and I'm trying to create this story where she goes back and it's a love story. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? So it's a lot in creating. Now that was just a small children book. Now I'm trying to create a big masterpiece. So it's a lot of work going in trying to create a world and tell, you know, and tell these stories. And you say you a
Yeah.
master storyteller. You more of a storyteller, you know, than anything, man. So salute to
Yep.
you, man, for being a very creative person and able to create those different series, because man, everybody
Mhm.
can't be able to be a creative
Yeah.
and tell a story where it connects with people, man. So salute. I can't wait till the uh the series come out, man. I'm definitely gonna, you know, be a supporter, because everything you done put out, you know, even, you know, this book here, you know, we might have
Yeah.
time to talk about it, you know. So I
Yeah.
also have, this is the first publication that you
Yeah.
had, right? Matter of fact, while we got it, man,
Yeah.
in the REM realm, Curse
Mhm.
of a Billionaire,
Yeah.
you blend speculative fiction and
Yep.
psychological explorations.
Yep.
What inspired the concept of the dream-based storytelling, because you're telling a story, through the lenses of Black success and trauma?
So the main thing that I was trying to get when I created this book was I was like, and this is the first book that I actually created back in 2021. So with this book, I was trying to like write a book about dreams, but I wanted to still kind of incorporate the idea of race in it in some way, but it was like my first shot at just trying to put something out there. So the way that I looked at it was I had a bunch of intense dreams, so I thought of a good way to try to formulate them and kind of put them into, you know, this book series, not necessarily in this book, like my dreams personally, but like in this series, I started talking about it. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a character that was just the total definition of a white supremacist. And I wanted to show you how his dreams start messing him up in different ways and all this other stuff. So it was a way to kind of start off by like having a character that, you know, wasn't necessarily somebody who people were going to like, and then you were seeing like the ways that he kind of saw the world through his dreams and the things that he was actually experiencing. But then as I haven't got to the second book, but at the point is to at some point show how these dreams are like other people have REM realms, and these REM realms affect us in different ways because they reveal a lot about our, you know, real lives and stuff like that. So that was the whole point of making it in the first place.
Okay, man, this quite a thick book too, man.
It is, yeah.
It's over 300. It's close to hitting on 400 pages, man.
Yeah.
Man, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, all I was gonna say, so it's actually like the first book of like a trilogy that I'm gonna be doing. So
Okay.
I really actually had to condense that because I had more that I kind of put into it. But the REM Realm series is supposed to, like I said, just talk about this kind of concept of dreams kind of coming to life. Because even in this book, the dude I told you who's the main character, he has these nightmares, and in the nightmares, whatever happens to him in the actual nightmare itself happens to him in real life. So they almost exploit and make these kind of euphoric versions of these, like these hyperbolic euphoric versions of dreams that we experience that sometimes tell us things, but we don't really always understand the lesson.
So it is the next book. And I'm just asking because I'm throwing these things out here because is the next book gonna be as thick as this and is? I have, and why I'm asking that is,
Yeah.
I have no problem. Like, I grew up, I ain't gonna say grew up, but for the past 12, 13 years of me being an avid reader, like a lot of the people that groom me directly or indirectly, those authors were people who wrote books 3, 4, 500 pages. So those books don't intimidate me, you know what I'm saying, at all. You know, but now we in a climate where people attention span, and I say this a lot, and
You're right.
you know, just goes people head. People attention spans are so short. So if I show you a few of my books, I authored several books, and a lot of my books I always, because this is what I grew into loving and following behind, like a John Henry Clark or Asa Hilliard or a Dr. Ben or John Henry Clark, Claude Anderson, and you know, and I can keep good. The list goes on and on. And you know, these writers wrote that wrote all of this material and combined it into 300 or 400 pages. But now in today's climate, the attention span is so, you know, so short. So when we're writing these 300 or 400 page books, you know, it becomes intimidating to people, you know what I'm saying? And so 2 years ago, I started writing, and then you know, me and Sean started writing books together. Also, we, you know, hey, we want people to read it. We're gonna create something between 100 to 150 pages. We don't, you know, we gonna accommodate them some, but we're not gonna accommodate we're not writing no pamphlet. We're not writing no 30, 40 page book. We're gonna write between 100 and 150 pages that should be comfortable for people to read. So Is that something that you thinking about going into the next book, or that's something that you just don't think about? Hey, I'm gonna get them out, and whatever the page count is what the page count is gonna be.
Yeah, it's more of that second one. You
Yeah.
know, my thing is when I create books that have a lot of pages, and I look at it as a thing of I try to provide value for people who I know are going to be interested in the thing that I'm actually creating. So
Mhm.
I try to provide like a good book that has a lot of great content and keeps them interested in kind of, you know, what's there. So I do understand that, you know, a lot of people have short attention spans and they want shorter books. And eventually I probably will have books that are going to be a little bit smaller too. But ultimately, I write based off of what I feel needed to be said in that particular book. I don't like to shortchange my voice, and I also don't want to shortchange things that I believe that people need to hear from what I'm creating, whether that's fiction or whether that's nonfiction. Because as you can see, I do a little bit of both.
Mhm. Yeah, man, I need to be more like you, man. I'm a talker, so
Yeah,
so it reflects in my writing. So, like I
yeah,
said, if I start
same.
pulling out some of my books,
Yeah.
that's how they is. They 2, 3, 400 pages. In my last book I put out,
Hmm.
let me see how many pages this is. So I put this out some months back, From Privilege to Genocide, the
Yep.
Hutu and the Tutsis, and its colonial roots, right? I written this to respond against a few individuals who was talking about the history of the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda, but they
Hmm.
had no clue of what the hell they was talking about. So
Yeah.
I don't argue with a lot of people. That's just not my personality. I'm not gonna go
I'm
back and forth and argue with you. I'm not gonna waste my time. I'm not gonna be in the chat, or on your social media page and just typing 3 or 4 hours going back and forth, or jumping on your live, or jumping on one of
Yeah.
your streams. That's just not me. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just rather do it. And
Mhm.
if I feel like it's worth my time, then I'll do it. And I struggled when I was writing this book. This book is 165 pages,
Okay.
but I had more to
Hmm.
say.
Yeah.
And like I said, I silenced my voice because all I was thinking about was the attention span of other people, and I wanted people to read this book, but I had so much more information that I
Hmm.
could have actually put into the book that people also that like to read would appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
rest of the information in the book. So I've been saying I was gonna do a part two to this book. I don't know when, and I'm definitely gonna do a part two to the book because I wanted to kind of talk more about the president and the
Mhm.
climate of Rwanda right now, and some of the
Yeah.
things that the president is actually doing that a lot of people is not aware of, that's happening and that's affecting Uganda and the Congo.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't put it in there. So I need to get more like you because I
Yeah.
like to write and I don't like to silence, what I'm doing. Even now I'm writing a book right now,
Hmm.
and it's hard. I said my chapters are going to be short, but
Hmm.
with this book, I'm writing between my chapters are like between 12 to 15 pages. And that's
Okay.
just how it's coming out because I got
Hmm.
so much to say, and I'm getting it out, and I keep saying, okay, I'm just gonna get it out, and then I'm gonna go back
Yeah.
and start condensing some of it and taking some information out of it. But
Yeah.
I might keep it, you know what I'm saying? I need to get like you. Hey, I don't need to silence any of my thoughts. I need to get it all out, and whatever it is what it's gonna be. You know?
Yeah. What
Yeah.
I was gonna say about that real quick is I think that I could see both sides to it, but ultimately I think that we need a lot more black male writers, whether they're doing fiction or whether they're doing nonfiction. And I think when we have important things to say, because a lot of us do, we should be able to, put that stuff out there. And that's like really one of our only times where we're able to, especially for self-publishing, that is, where we're
Mhm.
able to put our authentic voices without somebody putting some type of filter on it, somebody saying you can't say this because it's
Mm.
going to come off this way to this
Mhm.
community, or it's going to do
Mhm.
this and that. This
Mhm.
is your opportunity to say everything that you need to say and frame it in a way that's either artistic or informative or both. So
Mhm.
that's why for me, it's important for me because I'm kind of like you. I'm a talker. I actually don't like, I've had people even tell me before I talk a lot and I say a whole lot. And well, that's just who I am, man. It's who I am.
Right,
I'm
right,
not
right.
changing that for nobody. And
Right,
so
right.
I had that same mentality when it comes to my writing as well too. And it's like, okay, well, you don't want to hear what I got to say for free. How about you pay for it? So that's my thing. You know,
Right.
I want you to hear my voice because I have a lot of very important things to say. And I think that you know, if you aren't going to do a book that's longer, you still should get all of the stuff that you have to say out there. It shouldn't be a thing of hey, you know, I got 300 pages worth of things. I'm going to split into 150 and not include the other stuff. Find a creative way to maybe take some of it and put it in one book and then take the other part and put it in another book. That's another strategy to be able to make sure you're getting all your stuff out there and you got two products as well too. So I look at it like that.
Yeah, yeah, most
Mhm.
definitely, most definitely.
Mhm.
Man, let's see where I want to go with, man. Dang, we at an hour already, man.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah. So, you know, and I try not to let this show go too long because I always want to be
Yeah.
respectful
No,
of
you good.
people times as well, man. Where I want to go with it, man. Um, what advice would you give an inspiring Black creator, writer, or activist who want to shift the narrative but feel overwhelmed by mainstream opposition or lack of support? And this question, you know, more per se is for me as well as other people because I know other people struggle with it. I don't give a damn really about mainstream or what mainstream
Yeah.
say, but the lack of support. Like, so I'm gonna say it again. What advice would you give an aspiring Black creator,
Mhm.
writer, or activist who want to shift the narrative but feel overwhelmed by mainstream opposition and the lack of support?
Whew, I got a lot of advice. But the one thing that I would say is what you create is not for everybody. So
Mhm.
what I mean by that is a lot of times we want everybody to like us despite we're being our authentic selves. But in
Mhm.
fact, there's going to be tons of people who are not going to like what you're going to do, and you have to be okay with that. Matter of fact, your focus and your center should be on people who actually are again like-minded and actually care about the things that you're putting out there, or people who are willing to learn, people who are open-minded, who are going to listen to the things that you're saying and why it's important. The second piece of advice that I would give to that person is be a person who through integrity will give people another option. So let me tell you what I mean by that. I think that one of the big discussions that people have are, can I be able to be pro-Black and still create something that people can kind of gravitate to and do? You absolutely can. You can really make anything into a brand. You just have to be your authentic self and start being able to set a precedent that basically shows people are showing that you're bringing something to the table. You're giving them an option, you know, that wasn't originally there. I think about things like, I'm gonna give you an example. Sinners is a great example of what I mean by something that's out there that has a strong pro-Black element to it, but is in the mainstream. You know, this is something where it's actually transcended these more so controlled opposition and even what I would call super controlled opposition narratives. This was authentic and this was something that was extremely pro-Black. And then as soon as I heard Ryan Coogler say foundational Black Americans, I'm like, okay, he done normalized something. He normalized something that we really did not see before. So my thing is like he's normalizing paying attention to people in the pro-Black grassroots. So this is something that a lot of us are able to do, but we have to stick to our guns and not worry about what people are going to say. We have to be able to create things and systems and put things in place that we control, and nobody can silence our voices and things that need to be said. So it's very important for us to stick to our guns and realize that we're not for everybody, but we can create opportunities for the next people to come who we can inspire.
Yes, man, that's some good advice.
Mhm.
I've been doing this a long time, man, a long time. And in the beginning,
Mhm.
um, I wanted to be likable to everybody, man. So I always tried to figure out a way on, but it never worked. I still had people
Mhm.
who didn't like me for whatever reason or didn't like what I was doing for whatever
Yeah.
reason. And me trying to play it, you know, kind of safe, you know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
you know, we want people to support what we got going on. But once I realized, hey, look, I'm I'm compromising who I am. You know, I
Mhm.
gotta stop compromising who I am for other people. You know, they either gonna like me for me or they not gonna like me. You know what I'm saying? And that's just a point blank, just point blank at it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna put out stuff for people that I know that may appreciate it. I know whatever I put out or whatever I create or whatever service I may provide, I may have people who may like it. I may have people who may not like. I may have people who may patronize my business. I may have people that may not patronize my business. What I
Yeah.
do ain't for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And once I realized that, everything started flowing better for me, in a sense,
Yeah.
instead of me trying to compromise who I am and then force some of the stuff that I'm doing so I can be likable and 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 people look at me in a certain way. Well, people won't feel like I'm too extreme or I'm very vocal, you know what I'm saying, about certain things, or I don't mind calling out certain things.
Yeah.
So, that's some great advice, man. That's some great. I wish when I came in
Mm-hmm.
11, 12 years ago, I was at that point, you know what I'm saying, where,
Yeah.
hey, look, I ain't gonna compromise who I am. I'm just gonna be who I am. They either gonna like me or they not gonna like me. They either gonna support or they ain't gonna support. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our people, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's some things too where we get like on the support aspect. Where over the years for me, that's why I threw the support thing in, a lack of support. Like we're always begging for us to do certain things, and then when a person steps up and start doing certain things, our people it's a lack of support. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of what we
Yeah.
do is not for free. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what we
Yeah.
do it's not free. It costs for us to do some of these things. It costs time away from our families when we doing this thing. It
Yep.
costs, it costs money when we're trying to put these projects together. It costs
Mm-hmm.
money when we're traveling, you know what I'm saying? To
Mm-hmm.
promote what we got going on. It costs money to do our own events or even rent a building or even partner with somebody. So a lot of these things, it just costs all the way around the board. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, people can get, you know, um, discouraged because of the lack of support. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And we're doing it for them, you know what I'm saying? And it get discouraging where, man, I don't even want to be a creator no more. I don't want to
Yeah.
stand on the front line for my people no more. I
Yeah.
don't want to, provide this service. I don't want to stand up for uh this plight, that plight. I don't want to go network, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, it's just crazy. But good advice, man. Good advice, man.
Most definitely. I did want to say something real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Go that. No doubt.
I think that, and this is a mentality that I kind of operated on at a certain point. Well, I started off operating like it. I don't know what I mean by a certain point. It's always been like that. But sometimes you have to have the trash just took itself out mentality as well too. If people are going to leave, then leave. I mean, you weren't
Oh,
somebody who was for me in the first place. When you're doing something, you have to understand that you don't get in business just because you're doing something for yourself. You're ultimately trying to create a service for somebody that helps somebody in a way, hopefully, that has not been done before, but maybe it has been done before, but you're putting your own spin on how you're doing it. So you're not tailoring what you're saying as if your target audience is everyone, right? I know who my target audience is. I talk to a lot of blurs. I talk to Black people in general. I talk to a lot of people who are pro-Black, who are activists, and that kind of hodgepodge of people can, really appreciate the things that I put out there. I also, at the same time, too, have a somewhat of an open mindset. I network with people and I get, a feel for who is actually open. So maybe we have different mindsets. Maybe we look at stuff a little bit differently, but can we respect each other's views?
Mhm.
Can we work together in a way that's effective and actually can be constructive at the end of the day? So these are the type of mentalities that you have to have. And I'll say one thing about that as well, too, on top of that, when it comes to social media, a lot of people talk about unfollowing this person, following that person, and all this other stuff. I don't get caught up in all that. For me, like, I don't unfollow people at all unless you unfollow me.
Mhm.
The other thing too is I don't block people unless you harass me.
Mhm.
So I'm one of those people where I see stuff that I disagree with probably every maybe half hour. So that means that I'll be unfollowing, not liking, not, rocking with a whole lot of people. If it was all about every time I disagree with somebody, I want to get rid of them. So I don't have that mentality. So I try to seek people who have a similar mentality where we can be open enough where we can understand our differences, but where our similarities can help us to work together.
Mhm. No doubt, no doubt. I'm the same. I hadn't um unfollowed anybody unless they unfollow me. I see things a lot too,
Mhm.
but that's just not, like I said, that's just not my personality.
Yeah,
I'm a busy man, so I got a whole
not
lot
that
of stuff
serious.
going on. So
Yeah.
it ain't that serious for me. I'm not finna be arguing with you, or every time I see something, I'm finna start getting
Yeah,
down on
yeah,
it, start typing.
yeah.
Like I said, if it's worth something, it's worthy on my time, then I'll put it in writing, because I look at everything from a scholastic point of view as well. So I'm gonna do it that way. You know what I'm saying? You talk about it, it's worth my time. You're
Mhm.
misleading the people, you're putting out dangerous information. Okay, let me put together something to combat what you're saying, but I'm gonna put it in writing. And then I have it where everybody can go buy it, and then they can critique it themselves. They can critique it, they can break it down, they can scrutinize it, they can go through my sources or how I arrived to certain things, because some of it may be my opinion and a lot of it will be fact-based, but you can be
Yeah.
able to go through it and
Mhm.
and comb through it yourself, instead of just spitting out, and talking and arguing back and forth with individual. That's my son. I'll call him back in a minute. But
You
yeah,
you good.
arguing with individual, man. Man, let me see one more question, man, and
Yeah,
we'll
go ahead.
yeah, man. You mentioned one thing, but looking ahead, what's next for Cool Colas brand? Are there any upcoming projects? Well, you talked about the comic book, or any news. Well, are you excited about sharing with? I mean, if that was it about the comic book, that's fine. But if there's any other projects outside of the comic book, do you mind sharing it with us? What you're working on? Anything that you got coming up?
Absolutely. So I have a lot of things that are pretty much on the agenda, but the comic book was one thing. Eventually I'm going to be coming out with a black sci-fi book that I'm going to be putting out there at some point once, everything kind of settles and I have time to sit down and really write it. I will also be working on some of these other comic books that I have as well too. For the other comic brand that I told you I'm going to be coming out with. I told you earlier that I actually had
Too.
two. Yep. So for the other comic book, it's going to be, the other comic books that I'm going to be putting out there, it's going to be based off of this world. That's going to be my version of DC and Marvel. So like they'll have authentic black characters, but it'll be like superhero characters, but the ones that I've actually created myself. So I'm going to be working on those. I've been kind of steadily working on those in the background as well too. I'm going to be continuing doing what I'm doing on YouTube, doing what I'm doing on Twitch, doing what I'm doing on Instagram. So all that stuff is going to stay the same. And then, yeah, we're just going to kind of keep all that moving and staying in the same direction.
No doubt.
Mhm.
Last thing, man.
Yep.
Writing, man.
Yep.
How where are you it doesn't matter. Are you a morning writer, afternoon writer, or you write best, late at night? A lot of us, I
Mhm.
write at all different times, but my most personal time where I'm just in a zone is at nighttime. It's quiet, you know what I'm saying? Everybody is in the bed,
Yeah.
and I'm back here in my office, and it just at that time, it just I'm just more creative at nighttime. The process for me is easier to flow when I'm writing. So are you
Yeah.
are you a morning, night, evening, or all the above?
Yeah. So overall, I'm a all the above, but I'm a nighttime type of cat. I'm the type I really like to when it's 9 o'clock and after. I'm usually sitting down writing some type of story or typing something up. I also kind of like those moments. I know these aren't really frequent for me, but like if I'm like traveling somewhere, like I'm on a plane or something like that, I'm the type that will like to pull out like my laptop or whatever I'm doing and write stories then because you're actually more creative when you're like in the air as well too.
Mm.
But those are special occasions, obviously. But if, in the typical situation where I'm able to sit down and write on an everyday basis, it usually is going to be at nighttime because that's when I'm the most creative.
Yeah, most definitely. Me too. I love, you know, but it hits me at all. It hits me at all times. So
Yeah.
it don't matter. You know, it can be early in the morning. Sometimes I get up early in the morning and I'll get in there and start writing. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And it flows some, and then
Yeah.
I'll pause. And then when I come back at night, I'm just like last night. I
Yeah.
started on my chapter 7,
Mhm.
and I might have got about 3 pages out that morning. Plus, I had
Mhm.
some other stuff I had to do too. But I got about 3 pages out, and I got back into it about 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock last night, man. I
Mm.
stayed up for about 2, and
Mm.
I got about 9 pages done because it just be
With
flowing,
you.
and it just be with me. Not every night. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
get out no 9 pages, but that's the most, you know, the best time for me is at nighttime. My creative process or my creative juices are flowing. I'm locked
Mhm.
in. I'm harnessed in, and you know, I'm making it happen, man. For
Yeah.
for people who may be interested in getting uh your publications,
Yes.
where can they find your publications at?
Coolcolas.com is up and running officially. So coolcolas.com is the most prevalent place that you can go to get it, and I will deliver it to you. You can also get it on Amazon. I don't encourage it, but you can get it there if you want to as well. The other place too is if you actually follow me on Instagram, you can reach out to me and I'll get your order in and whatnot if you're trying to figure out the mechanics of my website. But my website is a totally perfect place where you can, do that and order it.
Yeah, most definitely. We advise over here to
Mhm.
patronize the author directly.
Yeah.
Patronize the author directly. You know what I'm saying? Because we are all self-published authors, right? And we
Mhm.
want all of our money for our intellectual property. We want
Yep.
all of our money to our
Yep.
intellectual property. So I don't give a damn about Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target, Walmart, .com, Books a
Mhm.
Million, all those other places. You know, I don't care nothing about those when it comes to my
Yep.
intellectual property.
Yep.
So patronize the author directly, and that's what I always try to push is if you some authors they want you to go directly to Amazon, just go to Amazon, just go to Amazon. But a lot of us we want all our money for our intellectual property, right? So, you
Sir.
know, those splits are terrible. Those splits are terrible. 60
Mhm.
40, 70 30, and it's
Yep.
always their way. So
Yep.
we want all our money. So if you
Mhm.
want to support my brother Cool Carlos, buy one of his publications, go to his website. Go to his website and patronize the author. And just keep that in mind. Any self-published author, if you have access to contact them through their social media, because there have been people I've tried to through social media, I
Mhm.
never did get no response. So
Mm.
okay, straight to
You know
Amazon
what?
then.
Yeah.
I'm going straight to Amazon, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely support the author directly. And for people who may want to reach out to you, my brother, or check out some of your social media pages, man, can you give them your contact and your social media pages if they want to reach out for Cool Colors? Because you are a public speaker as
Mhm.
well, you know. So, you know,
Yes.
for people, so can you give that out to the people?
Most definitely. So, as I said, you can go to my website if you either want to get something or you want to book me as a speaker, coolcolas.com. You also can reach out to me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most present. So, that's at coolcolas, COOLCOLAS, no spaces. Same thing with YouTube, COOLCOLAS, no spaces. You also can find me on TikTok. You can also find me on Twitch at the Cool Colas, not just Cool Colas. I couldn't get it for whatever reason, but the Cool Colas, and that's pretty much it.
No doubt, man. So please go out and support our brother, man, and we'll see y'all here. Am I taking a break next week? We'll see y'all here next week. I'm ready to take a break, Cool Carlos. I've been doing. I relaunched this show I relaunched this show in February for Black History Month,
Uh huh.
and I've been going every week since Black History, sometimes twice a week, Saturday and Sunday. So I'm tired. I'm tired. And
I
I'm
understand.
trying to get through this month. I still got a few interviews left for this month, and I'm gonna try not to book any. Or if anybody asks, I'm gonna tell them, can they just give me a few weeks, and I'll jump back on. I'll jump back on here and go full stride, man. But yeah, we'll be back next week on the Warrior Scholar Show. Appreciate those who popped in, popped out. Appreciate those who will be looking at this later on in the archive. Please tell a friend to tell a friend. You're definitely going to enjoy the conversation that we had with our brother. We out, and we'll see y'all next week, man. Peace, peace, and power.
Yeah, you know. Only a fool think he can outlive death.
Welcome y'all to the team RBG Green
we can still try though. We can.
Using music breaking no
PWO is a forward movement from here on out, you dig?
I'm your host, Steve Stiglo, aka Stiglo Swag Mode.
Shout out to Queen.
DJ Iron Man Chris Starks.
And Jingle.
Let's go.
Big stepper. I'm talking just like my ancestors. You Negroes trust the government. I trust my ancestors. We built kingdoms, and yeah, our infrastructure stand better. Plenty reasons for us to stand tall with our heads up. To walk with your head down, that's a no-no. I walk with the spirit of my queen of Ndogo, and we walk with the spirit of them kings in Angola. You was taught to be a gangster. We was taught to be soldiers. We need to stop the violence. For sure, I'm standing with young boy. Don't mean we shouldn't keep hollow tips in them drums, boy. WSK, if it ain't that, then you's a dumb boy. Nigga, you just want clout. Really, you don't want war, and that's treason. And we don't deal with clout chasers. For my people, I'm squeezing. You'll get turned to cloud chasers. Give them people a reason. Why you pretending when you know that you been a bitch? That switch come out your cartridge blown on some Nintendo shit. Y'all probably thinking that I'm talking on some nigga shit, but black love is black power, man. I'm talking militants. We need to stop firing across some friendly shit and take a shot at keeping black dollars in black businesses, so our cash could flow into black industries and change a couple tendencies. Chase our dreams and make our dreams. This shit, it ain't make believe. They really hate the team, and it's deeper than our skin. They hate what's coming from within. Damn, you need to check your temp. Blackballed and blacklisted. Fuck it, we been next. The reasons why we fell, cause we tryna be somebody else. Thinking that we know some shit we don't even apply to self. To deny yourself the courtesy of growth, that's a cry for help. We deprive ourselves of commonwealth, lack the funds to mental health. Only way to find yourself